And ask me, are you dying as you live or living afraid to die? I couldn't lie, son. I heard God's son, like a calm hum. Died some, came alive some, up on high some. Lifted out that prison, you'll be sliding out that sepulcher. Crosshair on my body, don't care if they shoot the messenger. Ain't no weapon shall prosper, gospel flow out me like lava. No enemy that we can't counter, Mouser. I spit heat throughout the heavens to the valleys, from the highs into the lows. Everybody,
I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Right.
Fucking thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm starting early. Hello, Mercy Choke. Thank you so much for being here. Quite frankly, I was bored and ready to just get this started because this is more so something that I've been meaning to talk about, and this is in regards to best friends specifically. Hello, Meatball. Thank you for being here. And obviously, I said that I was going to make up for the show with Parker. And thank you, everyone, for your kind sentiments and prayers. I am behind on getting back to everybody, but her mother's doing better. So thank you, guys. It really means a lot. And hello, Neutral Observation, and Harry74, Celestial Wonders, Dr. Crispy Rothschild, My Third Eye, and Eshni. Hello. So I am going to go ahead and run the intro, and then we're going to get into some best friends weirdness. And hi, Jenny Lee. Hello.
Authorities tell us that the most serious, or perhaps the most dangerous kind of devil worship comes in the form of underground cults. Most of them are very secretive, usually organizing clandestine rituals in the dark of night. Well, those ceremonies sometimes involve the sharing of animal blood to gain power, they say, but cult members believe their strength really comes from secrecy.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Hello, Zaralath Eternal, Wes H, Dave, hello, Kim White, and let me see who else. Steve Sippos, hello, hi Pooks, hello Pooks, I love you, hello, Carl Hassel, and dragon spotted or spotted wolf. I don't know. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Now, a lot of you probably already know this and are like, oh, Dana, you're really behind, but I promise I'm not. I just hadn't really gotten around to it because it wasn't really a priority with everything going on. Hello, Tara Jackson. Peace back to you. So Gregory Castle, who was formerly one of the CEOs of Best Friends, passed away in May. If you guys have been here with me for a while, you guys remember that me and Echo Cat did that really deep dive on, ooh, what was her name? Diana Asher, right? We did that on Super Bowl Sunday. I think that was it 2024? I think so. I don't really remember. Anyways, we were able to catch that one pretty quickly, and he's actually the one that notified me of Gregory's passing. So, what I would like to do is kind of remind people of who these individuals are and what they believe, right? Because I found the most fascinating blog article. We're going to read it. It's a Substack. So well done, where they much more eloquently lay out the argument in regards to these people basically, doing cloak and dagger stuff, right? And hello, Anthony Kimball in Symbolic Studies. Thank you guys so much for being here. So let's go ahead and let's get into the initial announcement of Gregory Castle's passing. And here we go. Make sure you guys can see that. Okay. All right. So, A Tribute to Gregory Castle by Francis Batista. May 19th, 2025. This is tough. Gregory and I were friends, comrades, and colleagues for over 5 decades. We knew each other long before best friends. We ran a jazz club and coffee house together in Chicago. Yes, they did. It was called Jay's Place and also Satan's Cavern or The Cavern. We went to Dolphins games at the original Orange Bowl in Miami, caravaned from New York City to Arizona where the seeds of the sanctuary were sown, and broke ground at Angel Canyon along with other founders in 1984. Gregory, Julie, and my wife Silva and I traveled together across the Southwest, Europe, and Hawaii. He was my friend, my fellow adventurer, and one of the most quietly extraordinary people I have ever known. Digging around in my memories to do justice to the man also brings to mind the many things I wish I had said to him while he was with us, but there is no point in regret. Gregory was never the loudest voice in the room, but always he was the one that you listened to. His legacy is enormous. If you knew him personally, you know that what made Gregory unique wasn't just what he accomplished, it was how he was. Yeah, indeed. We're going to be getting into that. For 41 years, Gregory lived and worked in the Red Rock Canyons of southern Utah, where he helped build Best Friends Animal Society from the literal ground up. He ran electric lines and plumbing through the canyon by hand, guided by a stack of do-it-yourself manuals. That always struck me as so Gregory, a Mr. Magoo level of confidence taking on tasks that he had no preparation for, like hooking up 10,000-volt transformers when we were building the sanctuary with just a 10-foot insulated pole, a pair of heavy gloves, and rubber-soled shoes. In the words of a ditty from another era, it was a case of mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Gregory was definitely very much an Englishman, and, like the rest of us, something of a mad dog. Capable and undaunted, he didn't talk about it much. He just did it. And that was just the beginning. Oh, all this waxing poetic is very painful, but there he is. And let's continue. In 1991, when the smelly stuff hit the fan and we had to figure out how to support the 1,500 or so animals that we had rescued, Gregory set about building programs and a support base in Salt Lake City, while Silva and I decamped for LA. Again, with no apparent qualifications other than a very tony British accent, Gregory aimed high and succeeded. Within a few years, he created Utah's Week for the Animals, a statewide celebration that included a K-12 humane education curricula, student art competitions, special classroom activities, and adoption events. It was while building our Utah programs that Gregory met and eventually married Julie Stewart, a team up that would change the course of Best Friends and of animal welfare forever, when in 2000 they launched an audacious campaign with a multi-million-dollar grant from Maddie's Fund to make Utah a no-kill state. Maddie's was a startup at the time with an endowment from PeopleSoft founder David Duffield and led by Rich Avanzino, considered by many to be the father of the no-kill movement. Really? we're going to be coming back to that. Gregory worked with Rich to create a template for collaborative success that would later be replicated in LA and elsewhere. Oh, look at the young couple. Well, one of them is young. Those are really cute dogs, though. They're so cute. All right. Gregory served as CEO of Best Friends from 2009 to 2018, a period when the organization was growing rapidly and needed a steady hand. When the board of directors turned to him and asked him to step into the CEO role, Best Friends was in transition. Gregory was the perfect choice to guide the organization forward. He brought stability and structure and a focus on Best Friends' mission. He did what he always did. He brought order, calm, and clarity. He helped lay the foundation for what Best Friends is today, the national leader of the no-kill movement, working towards a future where every animal is safe and loved. Gregory had the rare gift of being both visionary and pragmatic. He didn't just dream of a better world for animals, he helped pull together disparate programs, bring already great work into focus, and helped lay out a plan of how to build that future brick by brick. And he did it with kindness. Oh, isn't this just so lovely? Look at him. There he is, the happy guy with all the little puppers. So let's see what he has to say about his history. Gregory's roots were in England. Born in Cranbrook during World War II, raised in Folkestone, a coastal town on the English Channel hit hard during the war. His father, Norman, was a civil engineer who stayed behind to serve while most of the town was evacuated. For his work, Norman was awarded an Order of the British Empire. That quiet bravery ran in the family. Gregory went on to study civil engineering, philosophy, and psychology at Cambridge, where he also joined the famous Cambridge Footlights, the same student comedy troupe that launched a generation of British acting talent into including Monty Python's Flying Circus. He dipped his toes into filmmaking, directing a 1961 film, The Connections, as a film photographer. Can someone find me a copy of The Connections? But his life took a more spiritual turn, one that eventually led him to the American Southwest and a cause that would define him. Boy, that is vague as hell. How are you guys dancing around that? I mean, you know what? Good for you. I wouldn't have been able to do that. That was smooth, Batista. That was a smooth transition. He was an early champion of animal welfare, helping unify grassroots rescue groups, shelters, and national organizations at a time when they rarely saw eye to eye. Gregory's style wasn't to shout slogans. He just got everyone in the room and said, "Let's figure this out." And they did. His list of accomplishments for the animals is too long to go into here, but noteworthy were his meetings with the president of Ethiopia to recommend an alternative solution to the proposed cleanup and culling of thousands of stray dogs in preparation for their national celebration of the Coptic calendar millennium in 2007. That was a mouthful. Gregory led a Best Friends team that brought in high volume spay and neuter vets and worked to divert a disaster for the animals. What a guy. As founders of Best Friends, we are often asked what we are most proud of. Gregory answered that question by saying, "I feel very proud of us. I have personal pride in this, and am incredibly lucky and blessed to have made this my life's work. Something that is truly gut real and meaningful to me. Looking back, I think, boy, what a gift to be given." Gregory and I shared a lot over the years, long conversations, laughter, plenty of silence. He had that British keep calm and carry on steadiness. I, a New York Italian, was more combustible, but Gregory's razor sharp mind, a wicked sense of humor, and a deep well of compassion were complementary to my hand talking style. And bagpipes. Yes, he played the bagpipes. At one time, he played them every Sunday at dusk by himself, standing on a cliff edge looking out over Angel's Rest at the sanctuary. It was a haunting sound. He said he played them for the spirits of the animals who were buried there. He played them at my wedding to Silva, too. Are you guys summoning dead animal spirits at your wedding? Batista, is this what you're telling me? I don't know, I'm just asking questions. He often called himself a cat person, but Gregory had a deep love for all animals. In the early days of Best Friends, he shared his living space with an impressive number of cats. Later, he added dogs to the mix, most notably his beloved German Shepherds, Shadow, Sunny, and Marley, Kill Bill sirens. They were rescues from LA, and they became his loyal running companions. Running was another thing that defined Gregory. Over the 20 years, he completed 17 marathons, including 3 Boston marathons. I wonder if he was at that Boston marathon. And at 73, because of course he would, he became the oldest participant at the time in the Grand to Grand Ultra, a brutal 170 miles, 7-day race through Utah's backcountry. It was a real physical test, he shared. I had no idea whether I could do it. I'd run marathons, but 6 in a row? That was an experiment. He talked about how serious runners often had a mantra, 3 or 4 words they say during a race over and over again to give them strength. During a particularly challenging part of the race, after running through a rainstorm, a thought came into his head that became his mantra. This is nothing. In the context of a processing, and that kind of tracks, right? Compared to the fate of animals dying without a home, he said the suffering he was experiencing, blisters, exhaustion, dehydration, was nothing. I was doing this for the animals, he said. That mantra kept me going, and sure enough, I finished. I think I came last. I don't know anyone who would call that last. Oh, it's just so moving, isn't it? It's just so moving. And there he is. Those are really short shorts. Let's continue. For me, the loss is deeply personal. He was my friend, someone I admired, trusted, and could always count on for a thoughtful word. He made everyone feel a little calmer, a little clearer just by being in the room. And his life, well, it spoke louder than any words ever could. He changed the world, and he did it gently. I think of the lives we have saved, he once said. We do too, Gregory. We always will. Gregory is survived by his wife Julie, his daughter Cara, his granddaughter Zoe, his brother Christopher, sisters Jan and Susan, cats Ellie and Maggie, and dogs Sunny and Marley. And there we go. So, that is part 1. So, he's deceased, right? And I'm not celebrating anyone passing away. Okay, that's not what we're doing here. However, in order to put all of this into proper context, we got to talk about who he is, right? And maybe if someone will remind me, I will pull up who his daughter is because you guys know me, I love genealogy, right? So let's go ahead first and get into the map that I have made. It is not complete, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Because not only was he married to Julie Castle, the current CEO, who, according to tax filings for fiscal year ending 2023, her pay increased from I think $350,000 to $527,000 for a nonprofit. The CEO, his old lady. Oh, thank you so much, Los Nuevo Dorados. Sorry, thank you. I can't pronounce that. Hello, everybody. I'm not trying to ignore you guys. There's obviously a lot of nepotism that is involved at Best Friends, and I think that that is a very valid criticism on top of all of the other high strangeness. But I want to show who else he is related to, and this will also show why I'm saying keep it in the family, because as an aside, this is going to connect, and this is why I chose this topic. This does connect with the stuff that me and Parker are going to be talking about because there have been accusations of vigilantism. I'm assuming on my part, since I'm the person that, puts my face out here. So bite me because these are public people. This is stuff that you can look up, right? So let's go ahead and let's look. So right here, that is him. Now, obviously, I haven't updated this to include the date that he passed away, but he was also known as Father Mendez, Father Ira, or Father Gregory, right? So he was born September 8th, 1942, also known as Andrew Richard Castle, Gregory Castle, or Gregory J. Castle. And as that obituary, memorial, whatever you'd like to call it, it did cite his father as being Norman. This is accurate. I don't have pictures of mom and dad over here, but his father, Norman William Castle, and his mother, Joyce Victoire Wiley. Yeah, that's the same Wiley, but we're going to get into that, right? So there's his old lady. That's good and well. Look at that pup. Look at that sweet little baby with the big face. Okay, so now, if we go over here, Let's zoom out for a second, right? So here's mom. We've got Joyce right here. We go over here. Oh, they're cousins. He's cousins with Timothy Wiley, right? So right here, Father Micah or Father Jesse. Timothy R. Wiley, Timothy R. Haswell. That's actually his birth name is Timothy R. Haswell, not Timothy Wiley. Also Tim R. Wiley or T. R. Wiley. Over here we have his mother, Diana Kathleen Wiley, and his father, George J. W. Haswell. Okay, now the rest of this map, let's go ahead and continue to show the absolute insanity, because we're going to also just look at hers really quick. So Timothy Wiley was married to Mother Maia, also known as Maia Astor-Drayton, Margaret Astor-Drayton, Margaret Caroline Drayton, or M.D. Wiley. Okay, now she is deceased. Again, we're going to look at that in a minute, but how did she get into the Drayton family? So she got into the Drayton family by marrying John Astor-Drayton, who at the time in the newspapers was known as Satan Drayton. No, you cannot make this shit up. But that is him. And right here, oh wait, no, sorry. This is her dad. No, this is her dad. My bad. She didn't marry him. Her mother married him. So here is her mother, Margaret Rankin, or Margaret R. Drayton, Margaret Cliff, or Margaret Rankin Drayton Cliff. That is the only photo I've been able to find of her mother. If you guys have been listening to the podcast, I have already gone through the genealogy of these people. But let's go ahead and let's continue. Over here, here are her parents, Eli Shorter Rankin, Margaret Thomas Rankin, and who are his parents? Well, right here we have got Margaret Astor Peggy Drayton Reventlow and Count Kurt von Hogwitz Hardenberg Reventlow, and William Astor Drayton, Helen Fargo Squires Dolphus, and going out to the great-grandparents, James Coleman Drayton and Charlotte Augusta Astor Drayton. This is a freaking mouthful, but there you go. All related, all nepotism, right? And this is why I say that best friends, the process, whatever you would like to refer to them as, that it is just a major group of elitist little shits, right? This is just a bunch of elitist little shits, because that's old money, or as I like to say on the podcast, fuck you money, if you will, right? That's what that is. Now, let's go ahead and let's look at two things about Mother Maia. We'll go ahead and look at the death announcement first before we get into more about Gregory, because just want to show you guys, we like to contrast and compare, right? It's important to know what they are putting out. Best friends is what I mean by they. So here we go. All right, so looking back on the lives of two incredible animal lovers. So there she is right there. And this is by Gregory Castle, current CEO, right? July 2019. Not going to sit here and read the entire thing, but the passing of Maia Astor-Drayton, Best Friends co-founder. And she was, it says here, she was part of the team of founders who did grassroots fundraising across the Southwest and managed a legion of counter donation canisters throughout Utah, Arizona, and Southern California, all to help keep the lights on and the animals fed before Best Friends was a thing and when no kill was regarded as the lunatic fringe. Doesn't this just kind of sound like a repackaging of the process's whole religious persecution, right? We know that they were being funded by celebrities. Yeah, okay. So, in those early days, when every founder's accommodation was considered an extension of the sanctuary as far as animal care was concerned, Maia made it possible for others to travel on extended road trips by looking after their animals, many of whom had special needs while they were away. Maia's work was largely unsung and unpublicized, but her co-founders, colleagues, and friends know how essential she was to the life-saving success of the organization. Now, again, this is something I've talked about on the podcast, so I'm not going to get into it here, but Timothy Wiley details how she claims that she murdered her mother. She murdered her mother. This is according to Timothy Wiley. Obviously, I don't think that he is the most reliable narrator. However, apparently, according to Wiley, she was a bit of a sociopath, right? And her mother did suffer a very unfortunate demise. So it wouldn't really be the craziest thing, especially considering how connected her family is. But we're going to look at one more thing from Best Friends about her, and then we will get into it. And I'm going to look at the chat as well when we're done looking at this. So, right here, here's another photo of her remembering Maia Astor-Drayton, and we get obviously a lot more history. Isn't it interesting how they do this? This is why you've got to check every once in a while to see if they've put out some type of update. So Maia grew up wealthy in a well-respected New England family, but she had no interest in wealth. She would much rather give it all away and help save the animals. In her youth, Maia was an auburn-haired beauty who turned a lot of heads. She cared about her looks in those days. She didn't want to wear glasses, even though she could barely see her hand in front of her face. How is she doing auditing with you guys? That's kind of odd. But she wasn't prissy. She was once seen chasing a strange man down the street, threatening him with her umbrella because he had really ticked her off. We have no idea what the poor man did. Maybe Wiley was telling the truth. Maia was an ardent practitioner of psychic readings and was once featured in the National Enquirer. She was a talented pianist and sometimes wrote and sang ditties, either to entertain the other co founders or else during her visits to nursing homes or hospitals to cheer people up. Are you talking about the program with the process? She was kind, but also had a spark of mischief in her eye. If you listen carefully to some of the words in those ditties, they could be a little dark. Above all, though, Maia was a hard worker. When Best Friends was first starting, she had not only thrown away her comfortable life for the chance to rough it with the other co-founders in the desert. Excuse me. Oh my God. All right, I'm going to shut up for a second. But she also drove around the Southwest, tirelessly putting out tin cans. Kill Bill sirens. What kind of tin cans? For coins to help the animals, and then driving the whole loop again to pick them up. She did this from Colorado to California. When Maia passed away, she left behind a unique legacy of dedication, caring, and of following the road less traveled. Guys, this is painful for me. So, you guys see this photo right here. Ooh, I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. That's going to drive me nuts. But right here, this is her. This is Faith Maloney. There is Frances Batista. There's Silva. There's Gregory Castle. There is Virgil Barstad. Who's hiding over here? I can't tell. This is Judah Batista. This is Cyrus Mejia. Actually, no, there's Silva right there. This is what did I just say is Mejia's wife? This is Mejia's wife right here. Now, right here, this is Kara. Okay. This is Gregory Castle's daughter, according to this guy right here, Batista. This is Harry, aka Stephen Hirano. Okay, this is his old lady. And there is DePire. There is Jonathan DePire, aka Gabriel DePire, and there is his old lady. Okay, so we kind of get in the picture here. Now remember, Kara Maloney, right? Okay, now keeping it in the family, literally, because I just remembered this when I was looking at that picture. Let me find it so I can show you guys, because I don't think that I've shown anybody this yet. So it may not be pretty, but quite frankly, I don't give a damn. Because I was able to finally locate the Browns from one of the old Process magazines and confirm that apparently they were having babies out in a stool, which is really odd, right? Because we know that like they're beating themselves in huts and finding Satan and Satan's finding them and blah, 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 blah. But let's go ahead and get this pulled up right here because that's what's going to show it. And I think I have Kara in here somewhere. Hold on. I do. Yep, let me move this to the back. Hold, please. Talk amongst yourselves. I thought this was going to be an easy show, and now I've made it complicated for myself because I just like making things complicated for myself. Whatever. All right, this is going to be a mess. So if you want the information, take screenshots. I don't really care. All right, but let's do it. Okay, now. Window, boom. All right, so here we go. So, Faith Maloney, right? We saw her. So, there is her real information. Okay. Geraldine, Faith Maloney, this is not a secret. None of this is a state secret, right? But I was able to find this little ditty. And this confirms that they were having babies, at least one of them, in Mexico. Okay, so this is the Vermont License and Certificate of Marriage for David Eric Maloney. Father's name, Fred Brown. Mother's name, Faith Maloney. Both born in England. Date of birth, February 2nd, 1967. Birthplace, Mexico. Huh? Kind of odd, isn't that? Kind of odd. A little bit disturbing to know that. Oh, there's other photos of her. Oh, well, here, this is helpful. So, for those of you that have been with me for a hot minute, then you recognize this. There she is, right? That's the name that we just saw. Mother Hathor, right? That's her. Okay, so we know who she is. All right, so let us continue. There is Dad. So see, I got all the history on Dad. Isn't that exciting? It's exciting for me. And then I've also got her parents up here. And here he is. Oh, there's the other guy. The guy that's right next to her in the Process magazine. Frederick Brown. Look at that. Identified, obviously. He is no longer with us, but right here. This is Kara. I hope I'm saying that right. And this is Kara, or maybe Kara, okay? Now, you may be wondering, what does that mean? That means that Gregory Castle and she had a child together, okay? So, this wife swapping thing, it's a very real phenomenon within the process. It's certainly not unique. Best friends, the process, whatever you'd like to call it, but there is a lot of wife swapping or spouse swapping that goes on. And again, if you have been listening to the podcast, then you know about the orgies, right? We've talked about this stuff. So none of this should be a surprise at this point, but let's go ahead and I'm going to go back in the chat just a little bit. I'm not going back all the way. Let me see. This one goes to 11. Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm not really that prepared. I just kind of threw this together. And yes, the process definitely has a stranglehold within the music industry, and it's a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And they do have a very strange reverence for Charles Manson. That's kind of a common theme that you'll see. They'll deny it. But I don't really know what to tell people. Go look through my comment section. Sort by new. Click sort by new. And then you'll be able to see, right? This also, if you write something crazy, sometimes YouTube will filter it out, but you will be able to see people saying that, I should stop talking about Charles Manson. Boo, 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 boo. I do not care. Nothing says modesty like taking the name of an Egyptian goddess. Yeah, let me see. Was he a CB? I don't know what a CB is. And I'm curious if there's any connections to the Finders. That I have no idea. I feel like the Finders is also very complicated. I honestly don't have a answer to that. I haven't really looked into it. The year of birth, dead in the family tree. Oh, I don't know. That's a great question. I've got to come back and kind of clean up these maps anyway, obviously, because I still have to update that one, and I need to put in Maloney and that connection with Gregory Castle, because they're all sleeping together, they're all having sex, they're all having babies, doing God knows what. It's very odd to me, again, that they were doing that in Stuhl, because it's like, how many kids were they having? Because something else that I'm not going to talk about today, it's something that Timothy Wiley has discussed. I don't know that I've seen any of the other founders or processians talk about it, but I actually found the birth record. You know, I think it's in Love, Sex, Fear, and Death. He talks about how there was an incident where one of the babies of the process died, and, you know, nobody was allowed to know about it, because this is what these people would like you to think, is that Nobody knows who Marianne de Grimston is or Robert de Grimston is. This is not true, and I'm going to be able to prove that, and so is Parker. But this was a big secret. Well, I found the records. Okay. I found the baby that died, and I know whose baby it was. And it was in New Orleans, and God only knows what happened, right? God only knows what happened. I'm not even going to get into that today. But let's go ahead and get into who Mr. Castle was. Because anytime that I've brought any of this up to the various modern day iterations of the process, whatever you'd like to call it, everybody wants to chalk this up to being edgy, being against the mainstream, that they have no responsibility for their words, right? Uh, Obviously, the court would disagree, at least the court in the UK, but we are going to read through this entire thing. It's a little bit long, so you might want to get comfortable. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, sorry, I had to wet my whistle. All right, so let's go ahead and we're gonna see what kind of impact that this gentleman had. Okay, so here we go. Oh, there's nothing wrong with being edgy if it's for a good reason. But these people, it's not for a good reason, and they paint it as religious persecution, and I ain't with that. Come on a journey. Night. A busy street. Bright lights and hurrying people. Exotic music filled with a heavy sexual undertone drifts up from dim smoke-filled cellars, where dancers scarcely move but feel, with senses heightened by alcohol, the warmth of one another. You stand in a dark alley. A woman stands before you, her back to the wall. You hold your overcoat to cover you both. Whilst within, she expertly manipulates, her hands deft and cool, and her body warm and full of passionate response. You move together and feel not only pure physical delight, but also the thrill of the risk of being caught in the act. You can see people passing in the street not far away, as swiftly and in rhythmical ecstasy you gamble, and win. No one has seen you. Is that your pleasure? Or is it here? A club where you and others sit watching shadows on a screen. Two people making love in strange positions, slowly at first with gentle weaving movements, then faster till the final moment comes. Or would you rather be in a dingy brothel? Men and women round you, naked and busy in their various ways. A woman with huge breasts presses herself against you, smiles at you lecherously, strokes you. You smell the heavy odor of her body and respond. On the floor, two other women wrestle in feigned antagonism, sweating, grunting, heaving. You watch them. Is that your fancy? Or maybe something else? Perhaps an older woman, grotesquely misshapen, with great hanging breasts, or a cripple, or perhaps a half-wit posturing before you and cavorting. Or would you rather lie supine whilst whores play upon you, their trained and expert bodies moving in a kind of ritual dance, contorting, swaying, posing, all for your pleasure? You watch, delirious, and feel their hands, their legs, their thighs, their breasts, their lips upon you, and more as they perform delicious acts of sensual depravity upon your face and upon your body, till you are almost senseless with the pleasure of it. Enough of that. A little flagellation now. First watching with others whilst a man, naked below the waist, kneels, and a woman tightly corseted in black and wearing tall leather boots beats him with a bunch of thongs. Do we think that this is Marianne? That's what I think. Oh, wait, what else? Bringing up red wheels upon his buttocks, and you gaze in fascination, utterly absorbed, and aching with anticipation awaiting your turn, and when it comes, you kneel. You hear the woman's heavy breathing, smell the sweat of her body as she moves preparing to strike you, and smell also the leather of her boots and of the thong she holds. You wait for the delicious pain. Or do you prefer a touch of necrophilia? Come then to a room all draped in black. Coffins line the walls. On marble slabs, like bodies in a morgue, lie several naked women, alive yet painted to seem dead. You stand beside a slab. Reach out your hand and touch the pale body upon it. It's cold. It doesn't move. The eyes are closed. You feel the atmosphere of death as you stroke the woman and then lie upon her. Still, she is motionless. Or would you rather death itself? Come then, a cemetery, still night, but this time no one but you and a woman of your choice moving silently between the graves and tombs. No fear of discovery here amongst the dark, deserted resting places of the dead. You stand together near a clump of yew trees, feeling the sinister graveyard atmosphere and the excitement of anticipated desecration. No shielding overcoat required here. Both of you throw off the needleless coverings that, for society's squeamish sake, you wear in public and stand exposed to the warm night and ghost-like air of sweet decay. Ugh! Then you walk again between the gravestones, performing upon them acts of desecration, each whilst the other watches in delight. Then you climb upon the highest tombstone, the resting place of some rich, pompous dignitary, and in the dark over his venerable head, you stroke your woman's body, lie upon her, lie beneath her, wallow in a furious, passionate, sweating, groaning copulation, with every perverted contortion and strange variation. And the watching dead observe you, and are silent. Or is your place within a ruined church high on a hill? No glass in the tall slotted windows, but perfect for the celebration of the Black Mass. The priest in midnight garb, the congregation, men and women unclothed except for the blood-red masks upon their faces, stand silent, waiting for the presence of their Lord and Master, Satan. Doesn't that sound like what we read from Dougie Lucian? Remember when we read that? Sounds just like it. I think he said the exact same thing. A naked girl, fair-haired and in the very prime of youth. What does that mean? Lies like a human sacrifice upon the altar, snow white against the black velvet of the altar cloth. Nothing stirs. No sound but the sighing of the wind. A blinding flash of lightning. A peal of thunder seems to burst within the very walls. No one moves, for no one dares to move. Satan, your God, is among you, black and lowering, reeking of evil in the pit. You stand transfixed before him, knowing you've only just begun to taste the divine degradation that he offers for your pleasure. So there, my friend, is a fleeting glimpse of Satan's promise to those that follow him. Take your choice, indulge, explore the very limits, leave nothing out, and use every means of sharpening the senses. Alcohol to set the blood coursing in your veins, narcotics to heighten your feelings to a peak of sensitivity, so that the very lowest depths of physical sensation can be plumbed and wallowed in. The farthest reaches of the body's strange delights must not be passed over. Sink down into the decadence of excessive self-indulgence. Let no so-called sin, perversion, or depravity escape your searching senses. Partake to all of them, overflowing. What else is there? What other satisfaction? For always death must come and end the sensual game and take away the dark forbidden pleasures of the flesh that are the mark of life and the only true means of living. But let him not come before you have lived your life to the full, seen everything, done everything, and felt everything the body is capable of feeling. There is nothing else now, with the end of man so near. There is no dialectic but death, and the spider weaves over tomorrow. By Gregory Castle, the recently deceased spouse of the CEO of Best Friends Animal Society. And I saw somebody point out, pretty ridiculous that that was actually printed into a magazine, right? Right. Yeah. That's what Best Friends is. That's who they are. Okay, let's not get it twisted here. Talking about necrophilia, talking about what sounds to be, in my personal humble opinion, possibly pedophilia. I mean, what does that mean? Like, sorry, whoop, hit the mic again. What did he mean? What age group is he talking about with the human sacrifice, right? But this is all just like symbolic. That's how we're supposed to take this, right? Well, maybe. Obviously, you guys know that Timothy Wiley wrote way too much, and quite frankly, I cannot stand his readings, but I would like to just read a little snippet that I had shared on X some time ago to show that these people are racist. They are Nazis. And I'm not talking about like, oh, everybody's a Nazi. It's no, these people are Nazis. This is what they believe, right? So let's go ahead and let's look at this. In his posthumous book, Secret History of the Watchers, Timothy Wiley waxes poetic about the genetic benefits of the victors of war raping of the benefits of the victors of war raping the enemy's women. Nazi death cult gonna Nazi death cult. He says, in purely practical terms, the genetic aspect of racial identity comes down to the individual men and women of different races and how they relate to one another. Early tribal life in the mainland was naturally endo I can't talk endogamous, ugh. And as a result, most racial intermixing was the result of conquest. The men of the conquering tribes did what victors have always done: they raped the women or they killed them. That raping an enemy's women has continued as a deliberate practice to this day, reported in places such as Bosnia and the Congo, suggests how deeply embedded this behavior is. Although rape under these conditions will be intended as a savage humiliation for the defeated, the unintended consequences were sometimes beneficial for the overall health of the collective gene pool. Sometimes beneficial. Well, isn't that nice? Isn't that lovely? Beneficial to rape women during war. That's his brother in law. That's also the current CEO of Best Friends' brother in law. And one more thing that I would like to show, because I definitely have not shown it on here, and we're not going to read the entire thing, but I think it's interesting for all of you alien peoples. Yeah, and he was obsessed with Daniele Luna. That is absolutely correct. I found another little freak nasty lady that he got with, but we're not getting into that today. For all you alien peeps, John Michel dated for some time Timothy Wiley's mother, Diana, who was an intelligence asset under the Ministry of Economic Warfare. But John Michel was the author of the Flying Saucer Vision and co founder of the Research into Lost Knowledge Organization, or RILCO. So, obviously, I think that this is odd. Okay, this is in from his book, The Secret History of the Watchers, because he has, I think, 10 books now, roughly. I have all of them. I have all of them. And they are all just more painful than the next one, quite frankly. I really cannot stand reading them. Now, the last thing that I would like to get into, I think, for today, because hopefully I've made my point, and some of this stuff I've covered before. Like, I'm not going to go super deep cut on things that I've already talked about. I don't have it in me to do so, and quite frankly, I don't feel like wasting y'all's time. And this is a little bit long, so I don't know if we're going to read the entire thing, but I highly recommend take a screenshot, whatever. Go read this blog. I have pretty strong feelings about, I would say, animal advocacy movement, and it's not because I don't love animals. I do, but it's one of those things that it sounds too good to be true than it probably is. And a lot of things sound better on paper, right? And I think that this individual's breakdown here is just incredibly well done. And I'm all about supporting people. You guys may follow him, but let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so The Devil's in the Details: Unpacking the Hidden History and Modern Influence of Best Friends Animal Society by Ed Box, May 22nd, 2025. When advocacy turns intimidating. On a quiet afternoon in Danville, Virginia, Animal Shelter Director Paulette Dean received a message that would mark the beginning of a campaign of intimidation. After she and her staff declined to implement Best Friends Animal Society's managed intake policies, Dean recalls a representative warning her, Paulette Dean needs to remember that Best Friends has more money to fight her than she has to fight Best Friends. In the weeks that followed, staff members reported trespassers at their homes, frightened employees left their jobs, and misinformation about the shelter spread throughout the community. The emotional toll was significant, Dean later told Animal Politics. One of our staff members was so frightened, she quit her job. This episode is not isolated. Across the country, shelter professionals, volunteers, and local officials have described similar experiences when resisting the policies or public messaging of Best Friends Animal Society or BFAS. Critics and investigative journalists have documented a pattern. When communities push back, they are sometimes met with public shaming, divisive rhetoric, and orchestrated campaigns that create a climate of fear and silence dissent. Excuse me, is this not Scientology? Is this not fair game practices? Hello? Hello? Are you guys getting it? Okay, let's continue. So, from apocalyptic theology to animal welfare. Why does this matter? To understand the present, it helps to look at the past. I agree. BFAS's roots trace back to the 1960s when its founders established the Process Church of the Final Judgment, a group known for its apocalyptic theology and for incorporating both Christian and satanic elements, explicitly venerating Jehovah, Lucifer, Satan, and Christ as aspects of divinity. The church's practices were marked by strict internal discipline and the use of fear and isolation as means of control. While today's BFAS is a mainstream animal welfare nonprofit, some former employees and observers see echoes of its origins in its modern practices: the aggressive promotion of organizational doctrine, intolerance of dissent, and the use of pressure tactics to enforce compliance. The devil's in the details. When a brand becomes more powerful than its mission, who holds it accountable? If the fruit is rotten, you must examine the root. Telling you, I really like this guy's work. Inventing the message from foundation to fundraising. As the group shifted its focus from religious commune to animal welfare in the 1980s, its communication strategy evolved as well. The founders transitioned their publication, Foundation Magazine, which in the 1970s had featured provocative content, including an infamous interview with Charles Manson, into what would become Best Friends Magazine. The only thing that I will say, and I'm not even going to critique the guy for this, is we know that they had other magazines before it became Foundation Magazine, but he's still absolutely on point here. By 1992, this new magazine was dedicated to all the good news about animals, wildlife, and the earth, offering uplifting stories and a polished image that contrasted sharply with the sanctuary's early struggles. Distributed free to members, Best Friends magazine quickly grew to over 200,000 subscribers and became a powerful tool for advocacy and fundraising, helping propel the organization's national expansion and influence. And right here, citing Gregory Castle, the recent passing of Gregory Castle, BFAS co founder and longtime CEO, marks a symbolic moment in the organization's evolution. Castle was instrumental in the group's transition from its fringe religious roots into a national animal welfare nonprofit, helping position BFAS as a prevention forward organization in its early years. Initiatives like No More Homeless Pets campaign, once centered on spay, neuter, and grassroots coalition building, reflected his belief in systemic, community-based solutions. Since his departure from leadership, however, critics argue that BFAS has increasingly deprioritized those prevention strategies in favor of narrative-driven branding and national influence. Castle's death comes at a time of growing scrutiny over whether the current BFAS model remains true to its original mission or has shifted towards more centralized control, media management, and reactive crisis navigation. Absorbing expertise, building credibility. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, BFAS expanded its influence by hosting national conferences and, crucially, by absorbing outside experts into its ranks. This was not a minor detail. None of the original BFAS founders, staff, or volunteers had any formal animal welfare experience. That is correct, unless we're talking about what the court said, which was, well, I don't think it would be in the positive welfare experience for the animals, but having sexual relations with the animals and also sacrificing them. I don't know. The founders came from a variety of backgrounds: art, architecture, engineering, acting, and business, but lacked expertise in animal sheltering or veterinary science. To gain credibility and operational know how, BFAS actively recruited and incorporated respected figures from the animal welfare field, often after first inviting them to speak at their events or consult on sanctuary operations. This process of absorbing experts allowed BFAS to rapidly professionalize, adopt best practices, and present itself as a leader in the field. However, many of these outside experts did not stay long, sometimes moving on after brief tenures as BFAS consolidated its own brand of expertise and authority. This newly acquired expertise emboldened Best Friends to launch an embed program and absorb, remember absorptions, this is the orgies. I'm just saying the language is very interesting. That's all I'm saying, guys. The Embed Program, missionary work by another name. The Embed Program placed staff directly into municipal shelters and functioned much like a missionary venture. BFAS experts were dispatched to communities across the country not only to share best practices, but to actively convert local shelter operations to the BFAS model. In some communities, such as Rea County, Tennessee, and Palm Valley Animal Society in Texas, the program is credited by Best Friends with measurable improvements in save rates and staff morale. In others, as documented in Animal Politics, PETA, and multiple whistleblower accounts, it led to disastrous outcomes, overwhelmed local resources, surges in stray populations, and a climate of fear among staff. The consortium, a closed loop of influence. As backlash grew, Best Friend strategy shifted again. Rather than relying solely on embedded staff, the organization and its consulting network, the consortium, began to shape shelter policy and culture by influencing the selection of executive directors and senior leaders at both municipal and nonprofit shelters. This approach appeared to allow Best Friend to maintain a hands off appearance while still exerting significant influence. The appointments of Best Friends affiliated leaders to Riverside County Department of Animal Services, the Humane Society of Southern Arizona, and the Los Angeles Animal Services exemplify this shift. Consortium figures like Kristen Hassan and Dr. Gary Weitzman played key roles in vetting and endorsing candidates. Hassan's connections to Best Friends run especially deep. Her former boss at Fairfax County Animal Shelter, Tawny Hammond, is now Director of No-Kill Advancement at Best Friends Animal Society, and Hassan herself has been a prominent advocate for Best Friends aligned sheltering philosophies across the country. Gary Weitzman, President and CEO of San Diego Humane Society, has likewise advanced consortium priorities through both his leadership and public advocacy. When Weitzman's controversial community cat policy was challenged in court, he relied on Dr. Kate Hurley, director of the UC Davis Correct Shelter Medicine Program, as his expert witness. The Correct program, heavily funded by Maddie's Fund, another core consortium member, has been instrumental in promoting managed intake, return to field, and other policies that critics argue perpetuate the very shelter crisis they claim to solve. The close professional and financial relationships among these leaders and organizations underscore how consortium policies are developed, defended, and implemented nationwide, often with little independent oversight or accountability. These relationships form what critics described as a closed loop of influence within animal welfare. Organizations like Best Friends Animal Society, Maddie's Fund, the UC Davis Correct Shelter Medicine Program, and others appear to be informally aligned around a set of policies that, to many observers, seem strangely unintuitive and, in practice, help sustain the ongoing crisis in animal sheltering along with the fundraising opportunities that such a crisis enables. When national doctrine meets local reality. The Humane Society of Southern Arizona. The impact of this influence is felt most acutely at the local level. At HSSA, Executive Director Kristen Barney and her team appear deeply aligned with Best Friends doctrine, prioritizing rapid live release and transport strategies over prevention and transparency. Holy guacamole, guys, let me wet my whistle. Hold, please. Hopefully, you guys are still here. Okay. All right, we're still here? Good. All right, so contributing to operational crises and a decline in community trust. The result has been increased pressure on staff, a drop in life-saving rates, and significant donor attrition, raising questions about the long-term sustainability of HSSA's current direction. LA Animal Services. In LA, Stacey Daines was selected as general manager of LA Animal Services following a nationwide search in 2023, a choice widely viewed as influenced by consortium priorities and philosophies. Despite initial praise for her experience and vision, Dane's tenure quickly became mired in crisis. Reports described a culture of fear and intimidation, with some employees alleging that Danes created an uncomfortable atmosphere and failed to address the department's long-standing challenges. Her administration ultimately ended in resignation after a period of paid leave, leaving the agency in continued turmoil. Given these outcomes, municipalities should exercise caution when considering executive recommendations from the consortium or its affiliates. The pattern of importing leaders steeped in a single doctrine, without regard for local context or stakeholder input, has too often resulted in worsening conditions and organizational instability. Riverside County Animal Services, off-brand, on mission. Yet there is still hope for free agency and local innovation. In Riverside County, Mary Martin, a former Best Friends employee whose appointment was shaped by consortium influence, has nonetheless signaled a more independent approach, expanding spay and neuter assistance, partnering with the Bissell Pet Foundation, among others, to invest in long-term preventative solutions, and express a willingness to work with anyone who will help us save lives. Martin herself is quick to deflect credit, emphasizing that Outcome for Pets deserves all the credit for increased spay and neuter working with animal balance. She describes her first weeks on the job as a period of deep listening and outreach. I've spent the last 8 weeks talking to everybody and going everywhere to get up to speed and to understand what the community wants and needs. However, spay neuter is top of mind for everyone I've talked to, so I'm seeking opportunities. However, Martin's mention of Outcome for Pets is likely to raise the hackles of some local critics, giving the intense scrutiny and ongoing lawsuit surrounding Kristen Hassan's $2.5 million consulting contract, particularly the controversial managed intake and community animal policies associated with Outcomes for Pets consulting. For many advocates and community members, the association of Hassan's brand and methodology remains a point of contention and a source of skepticism about whether real, lasting change is possible in Riverside County. Still, Martin's pragmatic, community focused approach stands in marked contrast to the dogmatic, top down best friend strategies seen elsewhere. Notably, her leadership has won the support of Alan Woodruff, the lead plaintiff in the lawsuit against Riverside County, who recently withdrew his support for the litigation, calling it counterproductive at this point in time. For now, her early actions offer the community hope that a more balanced, responsive model of shelter leadership is possible. Additionally, recent media coverage underscores the community's cautious optimism regarding Martin's leadership. In an exclusive interview with NBC Palm Springs, reporter Mary Strong described Martin as a refreshing change for Riverside County Animal Services, emphasizing the importance of giving her a chance to implement reforms. News anchor Fred Roggin, while still skeptical, acknowledged the potential for positive change under Martin's direction during their discussion on the Roggin report. But as many advocates and observers have noted, only time will tell whether she can sustain this independence and deliver the substantive, wow, I really can't talk, lasting reform Riverside so urgently needs. When the wind of change blows, some build walls, other build windmills. And here, this is just getting into the comparisons of the process itself. Communities influenced by best friends and the consortium often grapple with a fundamental question. Is the culture in their local shelter healthy, or has it taken on the rigid, dogmatic traits that trace back to best friends' religious origins, the legacy of the Process Church, a group defined by charismatic leadership, strict internal discipline, and a worldview rooted in fear and absolute loyalty, can still be discerned in the way some shelters operate today under best friends' influence. In healthy organizations, staff and volunteers are encouraged to speak openly, share concerns, and offer new ideas without the fear of reprisal. Leadership is transparent, decisions are made collaboratively, and the mission is advanced through genuine community engagement and a spirit of inclusivity. These organizations adapt to local needs, invest in prevention, and see dissent as a sign of engagement rather than a threat to authority. Staff well-being is prioritized, turnover is low, and the focus remains on sustainable progress for both people and animals. By contrast, in shelters where BFAS influence runs deep, a different pattern often emerges, one that mirrors the high control, insular culture of its origins. Here, questioning leadership or established doctrine is discouraged, sometimes even punished. Dissenters may find themselves marginalized, while those who fully embrace the prevailing ideology are rewarded. Decisions are made behind closed doors, often with little input from those on the front lines or from the broader community. The focus shifts from meaningful outcomes like robust spay neuter programs and long term animal welfare to hitting numerical targets or maintaining a particular public image. Staff report high turnover, a climate of fear, and a sense that their voices do not matter. As one best friend's whistleblower put it, it's like the mafia, a telling reflection of how deeply the organization's culture of control and intimidation can run. Meatballs, meatball alert, okay? Meatball alert. Let's finish it because we're almost done. But yeah, it is like the mafia. Let's continue. This is not simply a matter of management style, it is the difference between an organization that empowers its people and one that seeks to control them. The echoes of Best Friend's dogmatic, fear based origins can be seen in its persistent use of slogans like Save Them All, internal mantras such as the community is the shelter, and what former staff describe as coded language like stay mission aligned or be solutions oriented that subtly discourages dissent and enforces conformity. Scientology, anybody? Hello? These patterns are reinforced by documented smear campaigns and personal attacks against shelter staff and their families in communities such as Houston, Fort Wayne, and Little Rock when local leaders resisted Best Friends policies. In some cases, shelters have been pressured to reclassify or abandon animals to inflate statistics, or have faced bullying and intimidation for refusing to adopt Best Friends' model. When these patterns take hold, the organization risks becoming more about self preservation and fundraising than about genuine, community driven animal welfare. You think? A healthy organizational culture is essential for effective, ethical animal welfare work. It fosters innovation, accountability, and sustainability while protecting both animals and people. In contrast, a high control or toxic culture can undermine the very mission it claims to serve, leading to burnout, poor outcomes for animals, and loss of public trust. By demanding greater transparency, independent oversight, and genuine community input, the animal welfare movement can address the troubling patterns documented in Best Friend Animal Society's evolution from religious commune to national animal welfare powerhouse. Thank you, drop the fucking mic, bro. Excuse my language. The evidence suggests a concerning continuity between the organization's high control origins and its present day tactics. Moving forward, shelters and communities would benefit from a more diverse, evidence based approach to animal welfare, one that balances immediate life saving with sustainable prevention, respects local expertise, and prioritizes substantive outcomes over marketing narratives. Only then can progress truly serve the animals and the communities that need it most. Animal Politics extended 2 invitations for comment to Best Friends Animal Society over the past year, one by email to the organization's senior attorney and one to CEO Julie Castle via her deputy executive director. The invitation to Castle specifically offered an open interview, allowing her the freedom to address or respond to any issue raised in Animal Politics coverage. As of publication, no response has been received. So, that is what we have. I think that author is very well written. I think that they make a lot of astute observations. These are things that I think are very relevant, but I'm also not going to come out here and act like I'm some animal welfare expert because I'm not, right? And I think that this is where you kind of, let somebody else take the lead and garner their insight. But I think that individual is very objective and very accurate in what they wrote, and I was impressed. And hello, Sammy Gazuani. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I have no idea if there's life on Mars. And thank you so much, Ellis the Elder. I appreciate that very much. Is it true that the process tried to stop people with mental health from changing them? I don't know what you mean, Dragon Spotted Wolf. I don't get the question. I'm happy to answer it, but I don't get it. That's all I have for today. I think that it's a lot. But again, Julie Castle's pay went from 300 and I think roughly 27,000 to over 500,000 last tax filing. What animals are they saving? There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems, especially with their pit bull initiatives. And I say this as someone who, where is he? There's my bub. You see my bub? There he is. Boop, there he is, my little Spartacus. That was my boy. I rescued pit bulls, okay? And I love my dog. However, there's a lot of problems with that. And there's a lot of lawsuits. We've talked about it before, and I'm obviously not going to show photos of mauled elderly people or mauled children. It's very traumatic. Like, wouldn't accept mentally ill people? I have no idea. Charging. Is it true that the process tried to stop people with mental health from charging them? I still don't completely understand the question. So here's, I'm trying to think. You're putting me on the spot. What did they say in the lawsuit? Sorry, guys, I totally just spaced. Okay. They made people sign waivers that if their mental health was affected, that they could not come after them. Legally, that is, what they said. So if your mental health went to shit because you're sitting there holding onto the cans, right? This is what you're doing to your brain, remember, okay? If you're sitting there holding onto the cans and doing all this Scientology process nonsense, and that happens to have a very negative effect on you, well, you had to sign a waiver that you couldn't go after them, that it was your problem. So I hope that answers the question. And I have no idea what I was talking about. I'm going to quit looking at the chat because it's throwing me off. Now, what am I going to close out with tomorrow? I have the first Sloppy Toppy PsyOps Saturday over on Patreon. Sorry, yeah, it's going for my paid members. It is what it is. I'm not really going to apologize for it because I'm way behind on the podcast, and this is something that I've been wanting to do because guess what? I have lots of thoughts and feelings about everything. Right? I have lots of thoughts and feelings about everything, including like the Charlie Kirk stuff. I have had multiple people reach out to me with, and this is not singling anybody out. Please do not take this personally because I'm not talking about you, because I'm talking about like 30 people at this point. I have not seen any documented proof whatsoever of any connections from best friends or the process to the situation that happened. Okay? I just haven't. I think that it's a bit of a stretch. Anything that I've seen is AI generated, and I do not get into AI slop. Okay? I don't like AI slop. I'm not here for it. If I find something legitimate that can be documented, that's fine. But I'm not going to make a reach like that, nor am I going to grift off of someone's passing, regardless of how you feel. I'm anti-violence, and I'm not into that. I am waiting to hear back from Parker for us to reschedule the show. Okay, so we will be rescheduling that. That way we can get into it because we're going to have to break it up into more than one show. And then on Monday, I think it's Monday, we are going to talk about the late Doug Kramer. I have gotten, it's not necessarily new information, but it is information that I have not seen anywhere else. I do not think that it's out there, and it needs to be talked about. I debated talking about it today, but I'm going to save that for a separate show because I think that, Doug deserves that reverence and that time and focus, so that we can go through this documentation and possibly, actually, it's just raising more questions, quite frankly. But I think that that's all I have for now. And thank you guys very much for being here. I appreciate all the kind words, what to expect from the show. Tomorrow, anything and everything. I'm going to give my hot take on the political circle jerks that are going on. Everything is fake and gay though, so that's why I put that in the thumbnail, because it is all fake and gay. But I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it, obviously. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about everything, and but people get really emotional about this stuff. And I also just want to be able to, like, kind of connect with people a bit more, because people are kind enough to, help out with Patreon. It's, it saves my butt sometimes, it really does, and I'm really grateful, and I want to give more. And I'm carving out time. I have a designated day each week to record the podcast, to try and get caught up and maybe get a couple episodes ahead so this never happens again, because a lot of people think that I've abandoned the podcast. We're still going to do movie night, but I also want to give the patrons a weekly news show, and people can request topics. I don't promise to get to them, but they can request them in the Discord. Um, and I might talk about it accidentally, but I also might talk about it as a request. I probably just won't acknowledge, like, who requested it necessarily, but I have thoughts and feelings too, even if I think everything is fake and gay, and sad and very, very strange. And I just want to be able to talk freely and get you guys' thoughts. And I'm definitely going to be talking about Idaho 4 and Delphi stuff. So I will talk to you all very soon. I appreciate everyone. I hope that you all have a beautiful, safe weekend. And if you are around on Monday, it would mean a lot to me for folks to set the notification and be there to discuss this stuff about the late Doug Kramer. This is something that's very important to me. And I think that for those, who know who he is or don't know, and maybe you go watch his stuff now and you find that his work is interesting, please come and please watch and engage. Come in the chat, hang out. I'm nice. Some other people are not so nice, but that's okay, because we're going to be asking tough questions in Doug's memory. So I will talk to you guys very, very soon.